Dollar today is always worth more today than it will be tomorrow.
Everyone kind of knows what a home inspector does, property inspector. They're out there crawling around, climbing around, doing that kind of stuff. How does this actually work in real life?
I'm quantifying and counting. I'm also documenting with my camera. Start with the parking lot, wheel stops, drainage, light poles. How many wall packs do we have on the building? It goes on and on and on. Your job is to bring value because big deals always come from smaller deals.
You've seen people holding themselves out in regard to being experts when they're not, or is that not something that really happens?
It's not about selling, and it's not even about being right. It's being correct and being diligent on what the expectations are.
Today's guest is the man, the myth, and the legend, Jonathan Frizzell. He's an expert in cost segregation and fixed assets. Jonathan, you're with Kevel Kevel now?
That is correct.
Awesome. Great. Well, excited to have you back on for a lot of different reasons and speak to you. You're obviously, a premier expert on cost segregation. That's music to real estate investors' ears, right? Whether it's commercial or multifamily or otherwise. And there's been some changes kind of on the horizon. But before we jump into that, for people who, don't really know who you are, could you tell me a little bit about, or tell us about, your journey into cost segregation? Like, what drew you into this niche? I doubt it's something that you grew up wanting to do. And so somehow you ended up in this place. Maybe you give us some quick background.
Well, sure. There was a childhood friend of mine, David, that introduced me to the service back in September of 2006. And he knew I was in the hospitality industry. And then I made a jump to wholesale lending up to 5 units. And then he knew I was great with service and people, but great with numbers as well.
Yeah.
And so I spent about 2 or 3 weeks learning about this professional service. And then I started literally Labor Day week of 2006 in September.
Okay. All right.
19 years ago next month.
That's a good run.
19 years ago. Actually, what is this? This is the third?
Yeah.
That's going to be 19 years ago tomorrow.
There you go. Congratulations on the anniversary.
Thanks.
Cool. So for people who are not familiar with cost segregation, for some people, this is, still a new topic, especially people even who've been in the business for a long time. Maybe you could just break down in simple terms, like what cost segregation is all about. Like, what does it mean? Just in, kind of high level view for people.
Well, it's an acceleration of depreciation, and how you go about that is by reclassifying assets into smaller depreciable lives, most commonly 5 and 15 year. Single family and multifamily properties are in a 27.5-year life. All other commercial property is in 39 year. Technically, STR, short-term rentals, things have changed a little bit. It's last time you and I met in a big way. Industry. Yeah, but short-term rentals technically should be in 39 year. LTRs, long-term rentals, should be 27.5. But I'm going to carve out into in some cases, hundreds of pieces, depending on how large the property is, into 5 and 15 year. And then whatever's left over will be in the section code. And forgive me for the acronyms, or anything. 1250, real property. Whatever's left over will be back in the longer life buckets. But it's also, and something we can talk about again, we haven't for many years together, about how you can use it as an asset management tool too, because then you're going to know the value of the roof or the RTU or the HVAC or what have you.
Yeah.
And then when you replace it, you get to write off the remaining capitalization. But I'm getting ahead of myself on that with you. But that's something else to think about for insurance policy. But at the end of the day, you're accelerating the depreciation. Your IRR, your internal rate of revenue, is always going to go up. And even your debt coverage ratios on acquisition, because you're bringing that lot. Yeah. But I can't touch the cap rate and don't want to.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's basically what it is. I mean, with the risk of oversimplifying it.
Okay. No, that makes sense. So, ultimately the benefit of bringing depreciation forward into shorter terms is you get to take the benefit sooner than later, right?
That's correct. That's the idea. I wish they would have taught that in the Seattle Public Schools or even at the University of Washington. The dollar today is always worth more today than it will be tomorrow.
Yeah. Time value of money.
Time value of money. Absolutely.
So what are some of just kind of examples for people just so they can kind of understand it? You kind of circled around it a little bit, but some of the biggest tax, savings opportunities that cost segregation can unlock in real estate.
What do you mean, like actual real estate type?
Well, just in terms of if I own a building, what is a clear example of where it's hey, this study can save me money?
Gotcha. Well, let's go with the short acronym reclass, which means reclassification. I can give you the combination of the 5 and the 15-year percentage wise of that basis, and then we'll bring in and answer your question. But if you look at self-storage facilities, whether they're room temperature or not, you're looking anywhere from 25, 30 to 45% of that basis is going to be reclassified into smaller loans. If you want a multifamily, class B or C surface parking, you're looking anywhere from 27, 28% reclass to about 35. What does that mean? Well, depending on what an owner's, their tax rate, you're still looking, rule of thumb, about 7 to 10% for every $1 million basis.
Okay.
So 70 to 100K. You can comfortably, but then from a depreciable standpoint or acceleration standpoint, you can go as low as roll lean, underutilized, maybe some light industrial. Some light industrial really produces good yields, but it's a pretty bare, these low 17, 18%, and then you go as high as, I think my record is, 49.5 or 51.5% of the basis. So,
wow.
But yeah,
okay,
it depends on. But the naked eye deceives us because there's a lot of things that we're estimating that go beyond the naked eye and the walls. And this includes electrical as well.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So in other words, the property doesn't have to be sexy to get a high yield.
Sure.
In fact, some of the least sexiest properties out there I have some pretty high yield, especially manufacturing, light industrial, and interior because of the heavy electrical, the hydraulics.
Oh, yeah.
But that goes for just a lot of different self-storage again. If it's room temperature or controlled temperature, HVAC that normally is in 39 year with the IRS quote unquote business activity, the HVAC is specific to a business activity. It becomes personal property. And then you have units or a combination thereof or different buildings. They have to break it out.
Got it. So this is something that applies to new and existing assets. So whether you're building a brand new building or you're acquiring something that's existing, you can run a cost segregation study.
That's correct. It finally became part of the IRS code in 2004, cost segregation. It goes back to the late 80s is when that term came up, and it stems from Tip O'Neill and President Reagan, the Tax Reform Act of 86. It used to be called a very distant cousin, a non-engineered service called component depreciation, but that all went away in 86 with Tip O'Neill. And then of course, major court cases with Walgreens and Hospital Corporation and back in the 90s. So the IRS finally made it part of the code, and I think it was in 2004. And I used to have the ref proc memorized, but I don't anymore. But the good news is that if you're going to be a long-term holder of at least 5-6 years or longer, it makes sense to do it. So you can pay down the principal or go buy another property or give your property manager a raise or what have you.
Whatever it happens to be. So maybe you can just walk us through a little bit of what the life is like for someone like you who does cost segregation. I mean, everyone kind of knows what a home inspector does, right? Or a property inspector. They're out there, crawling around, climbing around, doing that kind of stuff. How does this actually work in real life? I mean, are you just do you need to go on site? Do you need building plan? How do you do what you do?
Well, what we do, in our world, too little is too little, enough is never enough, and too much is about right. So when I'm doing that discovery before, during, and after engagement, it's never ending, and you know about that from a forensic. I mean, it's just constant discovery. That's all we're doing all day long. And then I'm going to do an on-site, or one of my engineers are going to do the on-site visit. I normally do those. Now, there was some wiggle room during COVID because of the obvious what was going on there back in 2021. But there's no more wiggle room on that. And the IRS ATG, Audit Techniques Guide, that's open to the public, do want a qualified professional to actually do the on-site. So to answer your question, once I've gotten all the docs that they're willing to make an effort to give me, I know sometimes they have more, but they can't find her. Maybe it's an older property, and there's always a reason.
Sure, yeah.
That's a separate podcast. And so what happens is that at the convenience of the property manager and the tenant, I got to have happy tenants, happy property managers, happy owners. So we want to schedule an on-site visit. And the first thing I'll do is I'll take some good full money shots for the cover of the study, because I've forgotten them because I get so wrapped up right away to start counting. And that's what I'm doing. I'm quantifying and counting, and I'm also documenting with my camera, whether it's, we'll start with the parking lot, wheel stops, drainage, light poles, how many wall packs do we have on the building? It goes on and on and on. And so, and then, it's not in the U.S. Constitution, but, it should be. But all commercial property, not all suites are created equal. Okay. So per that final change of property regulations that became final in late 2013, January 1st, 2014 final, they want, IRS wants UOP, which is the acronym for units of property. So you have to treat each suite, not to be confused with each, you got to create your own units of property in the building envelope.
Yeah.
Well, we got to do that with the suites as well.
Okay.
And great. So I got to visit each suite. So I always tell my retail clients, it's paramount important that, can your CPM or your RPA or can your property manager be on site with my engineer or myself to ensure a 100% success rate? Yeah. Because I don't want to be asking to take pictures because we couldn't get in there. So it's important that we have that 100% success, because it's in the benefit of the owner. And so I try to bond with the property manager that we both have the same client, the owner. Yeah. And we want to be in their best interest. So, but anyway, that's what I'm doing. Whether it's cable or DSL, sure. Lighting, and we get into primary and secondary, lighting and plumbing, electrical. Primary is structural, 1250 code, long lives. Specialty in nature. Secondary is 1245 personal property. So in like a multifamily, I'm looking for drop down penants, sconces, Yep. But
you guys are itemizing this stuff
itemizing that, taking a picture of that, yeah. And I'll, irrigate landscaping, irrigation, or is it this through hoses, or is it piping? Gosh, I could go on forever. There's hundreds of thousands of things on that. And, it's interesting. It's a practice, just like a doctor or a dentist. Sure. Every time you're doing it, you get, I've been comfortable for many, many years in what I do, but it's amazing. It almost becomes second nature. Like retention ponds. You see, they're real big in the South. You see them here now more and more. And, that's 15-year land improvements all day long. But now they're doing retention ponds underground. I don't know if you see much of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Maybe because dirt's getting more expensive per square foot, but they're laying down water retention ponds underground. It's really, so you see a lot of that in Bellingham. I just did a ton of townhomes for an existing client. So just when you think you have it down, you don't. You don't need to see a retention pond with the naked eye. It may be under your underground.
Yeah. Well, you're always learning. And I think property management is very much the same way. I'm always discovering new things, despite, being in real estate 20 years and property management 17. But, so you're basically, getting, drawings, you're getting all the information you can on a property. You're going to go walk it. You're working with other trades to kind of unpack that, like an engineer or something like that.
Yeah. Well, all our stuff is in house, and but I've there's been a few recovering people who do appraisals that are cost seg. Yeah. But mostly it's construction. Now, the Kevel family, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They're John Kevel II, the patriarch, which is my business partner's son, and also his older brother, Orion. My competitors, I belong to the merit side of cost segregation professionals, and when they found out that I joined Kevel Kevel, maybe principal, say, "Hey man, how'd you find out about them?" I said, that's John. He's the godfather of cost seg. And I almost didn't believe him. I knew about the name, but I got, I worked with the youngest at CBRE Group, Cost Segregation Group, CBRE. But he's a recovering architect, believe it or not. And so he knows his blueprints and drawings, obviously. Yeah. But he's been doing John Kevel II, his father. I think he's almost 80. Beautiful fellow. He's been doing fixed asset reviews since 81 with the Big Four. Even before the tax reform of 86. And then he started his own firm in 2001, which is still one of the longest standing cost seg providers. excluding the big accounting shops, KPMG or whatever,
Sure.
Moss Allen, which is held up by, let's forget the name of it. It doesn't matter, but they're Deloitte and all the rest of them. And all the rest of them. So both sons have been drinking caustic Kool-Aid since high school, and it's in their DNA. But you want to have some construction background, construction engineering, civil engineering is important.
Sure.
I even knew when I worked with it was a structural engineer. But to your point, there is a lot of people working out of their kitchens on this industry. We'll get to that to another time.
Yeah, I do want to definitely talk about that, but just kind of, staying on this, kind of introductory lesson here on some of the cost segregation. One of the terms that people hear, is bonus depreciation. Can you maybe explain that a little bit? Because, again, it's just, we hear these terms, people don't necessarily know what they mean or how they apply. So obviously.
Yeah, certainly. Bonus, the genesis of bonus started in 2002 by President Bush in Congress, but it was really retro back to 9/11.
Okay.
2001 when all hell broke loose in New York.
Yeah.
To kickstart the economy. And what makes it unique in the fact when the way it was written back then, bonus is defined as ending 20 years or less in depreciable lives. But it was only for TIs, leasehold improvements, and new construction. And then the first term of President Trump, I never thought I would see it in my lifetime, but he actually got it through Congress on acquisition.
Oh, yeah.
Which was huge.
Yeah.
And you remember back in the day. And then we'll certainly get back to 4th of July, what happened here recently when you're ready.
Sure.
But 100% bonus is defined as anything 20 years or less, which most notably in the reclassification or reclass is 5 and 15 year. And then, of course, we've had them scaled down. It's sunset at 100% bonus, I think, in, New Year's Eve of 22, and then 80, 60, and then until things recently changed.
Yeah.
But bonus is very powerful. And I always tell my clients, I ran across one only, thankfully just one only. I don't know why they elected out of bonus depreciation, but she never elect out because it's hard to get back in once you elect out. So you either do nothing or do elect. Do nothing or elect, but don't ever elect out. But 100% bonus is very powerful. If and whatever you don't use, you don't lose.
Oh,
you can carry that forward. Yeah. Things have changed this last time you and I talked. But there's but you carry it forward. There's no net operating loss, 3-year carryback that like there used to be in 08, 07. But the good news is whatever you don't use, you don't lose.
That's great. So for people who are their ears are perking up about this, and they're like, oh, maybe I've got a building that has been in the family for a while, or maybe it's something that they're building now. What does this typically cost? Like, who's the audience for this type of thing? Is it is it a big opportunity for people, or is it really kind of more specialized? What can people expect to pay for some sort of study? I'm sure it varies based on the size of the asset and all that, but
it varies on the size of the property. I mean, the median is a range. I've done a lot of small properties because of the advent of STRs, and I work all over the country. Did 52 single families in Arkansas through my fellow CCIM.
Oh, interesting.
And basis was smaller, and of course I had economies of scale.
Yeah.
Where I just send my guy out there for 5-6 days, and that's all he's doing is visiting these little smaller homes. But it worked out well for the client, the referral source, and I also do his properties as well. I find that as years go by, the more selfless that I get, that's amazing how the opportunity that arise in the relationships that are fostered from that.
Sure.
And to answer your question, it's usually 5 to as high as 10 grand.
Yeah. So these definitely pay for themselves. I mean, the amount of savings that people are
and I don't charge on estimated savings. I don't believe in that. Plus the IRS frowns on, the big four to get away with it all the time. But, I had I'll look at, they say you need $1 million basis or $800K or $500K. I'll look at smaller. I mean, I'm nothing more than a son and a grandson of a shopkeeper, a small business. So I grew up in a small house. I'm still in one.
Yeah.
So, I like working with smaller investors. I try to tell when I was recruiting years ago in 13, to create a team in Oregon. And of course, nobody listened. But, I had to learn the hard way myself, by the way.
Yeah.
When you're out picking apples, it's okay to fill the basket with Granny Smiths because the basket's full.
Yeah.
And the Red Delicious and the Jonathan and the apples and the Fuji and the Gala. Was it the Cosmic Crisp? I think that's what that's a new one. Those are fine and dandy. Even the organics, they want more money per pound for those. But at the end of the day, your job is to bring value because big deals never come from big deals. Big deals always come from smaller deals. And
absolutely. Yeah.
And so a guy like me had to learn that. It took a little longer back in 06, 07, 08. But it's generally 5 to 10,000. But I've worked in economies of scale when I've got quite a few properties, and it's going to be less than that. I want to make sure that my engineers get paid and that maybe I'll get a candy bar afterwards.
And yeah, so, obviously you mentioned engineers, and so you're working with engineers who are helping out with this part. Do you have any examples of maybe like fun or unexpected like reclassifications that you guys came across or something? Maybe like you mentioned landscaping before, where you're just like, wow, we didn't realize there's going to be savings here. And you do this day in, day out, but I'm sure there's some moments that, shifted your thinking or surprised you.
Well, it's good. The one that comes to my mind is for a client in Kitsap County, which is where I live, up ferry right away from Seattle, and highly, respected client who continues to come back to engage with me, and they had a veterans outpatient, and it was very involved, and there was quite a bit of IT in there as well, and it was suit to build the suit, but I thought, it was mostly going to be 7-year. And then, of course, it was a tenant. So then you get into ADS, alternative depreciation. So 5 years, really 10-year.
Okay. Yeah.
And then 15 is really 20. And 39 is really 50-year. That's called alternative depreciation. That's for nonprofits in any kind of government agencies that are tenants. Well, and I can't remember the specific code, but we worked out the discovery with the engineers in the back office. I think that's when I was with CBRE. I'm pretty certain.
Yeah,
might have been
before.
On
what year, but you might have
what year it was. But we ended up getting that all into 5 year, and that was a big pop.
Yeah,
and that was something I learned on the job with humility because I know that's that's a federal government tenant.
Yeah.
And I know that come hell or high water, that's on ADS. And whoop, there goes the carpet right underneath my feet there. So that's something that pulled out nicely. And so I rely heavily, not as much as I used to, but, I rely on the back of the house to find that kind of stuff. My job has not really changed since 06. I've always been, as you probably could gather, pretty hands-on.
Yeah.
So I'm one of many hats. And, I found a team the last several years, and including with the current brand that I'm with now. Now I'm an owner as principal. Is that what engineers really like, Nicholas?
Certainty.
That is correct. They do like certainty. That's good. That's correct. They love somebody from the other side of the aisle to go ahead and just do all the discovery, all the clowning with the client, trying to get docs out of them, and
the relationship,
all the stuff. They just want to do the work.
Got it.
And they want the entree given to them, or maybe set up an introduction for them to do the on-site visit. But guess what? Everything is there. They don't want to have to look for it. They don't want to have to ask for it.
Yeah.
And I thought, it took me years to find this out all by myself, wondering why I was getting along with John Kevel III so well at CBRE, and then later working with his family, which is a I want to, we're going on record here. That's my last stop.
Yeah.
And I got to understand, and I kind of knew it subconsciously, but it really became an aha moment when we started working more and more together and working with the Kevel Kevel brand as well. Is that, and not to oversimplify, but they just want to do the work.
Yeah.
And it sounds pretty right and pure. They just want to do the work. They don't want to have to talk about it. They just want to do the work. And so I'm hell bent, Nicholas, and I've been that way imperfectly early in my career, but from not only the relationships, origination, engagement, and all that, but the discovery, when last night at 11 o'clock, I was looking at a federal tax depreciation schedule referred by a CCIM broker I've known forever. Yeah. When I was in wholesale lending, and he was on the retail side of lending back in 2004. And he gave me a client who used to be a Washington resident, now an Idaho resident, kind of a common theme.
Seen some flight from some areas. Yeah.
And but he's got some property in Seattle. He's got this property in Bellingham. And I know it's new construction, but he didn't tell me that. I mean, I know it's an acquisition, but I thought it was raw dirt. Well, there was a Latino Mexican restaurant there. So I'm reading this from biblical, like scrolls. I'm reading this federal tax depreciation schedule, goes back to 06, 07. And I'm trying I'm hell bent, from 5 in the morning till 7 at night. And it happened to be about 10:30, 11 last night. I don't want to double count. I don't want to undercount, but I got to know what it is. I have to know. And because, you want to know, was it raw dirt that was acquired? And you look at the land basis. Anyway, and the client got back to me about 6:45 this morning on the phone, the early riser, in our time. And so he told me what the purchase price was. And then, of course, the construction of and the cost. So we're trying to determine it. So that gives you an idea. And that's just one little part.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's when I if I don't have any blueprints and drawings, then there's a thing of reverse engineering. Then we have to go the outside looking in. And then, of course, we use pictometry, and then we have Pro Google Earth. Of course, we're looking at the property as well. Even if I'm doing the on-site or somebody else is, one of my engineers. So, but it's that constant. And then, I joke about it with my back office. I do the best I can. I don't know what I don't know, but it's a pretty nice entree for them to look at the team and to go and just do the work. And I didn't realize this. It was a very humbling, with the risk of me repeating myself. They just want to do the work.
Yeah.
And that sounds pretty good, but it's true.
Yeah.
And why in hell couldn't I figure that out in 06? They just want to do the work.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, maintenance is similar to that. We've got maintenance guys on our team, and, they don't want to go look for the work. They want it to be handed to them. This is what we need to be doing. And then they love doing the work. They love doing the repairs. And so, yeah, you've got to, obviously it's part of a total ecosystem. You've got to have some complementary skills and supporting skills and so forth. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're doing a lot of, work up front though. But I imagine, you guys want to get it right? Because if, the IRS questions a study, you've got to defend that, right?
Got to defend it, yeah. And I always say quietly, we're only as good as our client, and I try, and at least at bare minimum, anyway.
Yeah, in terms of them giving you the right information,
and the documentation, and it's interesting. Without mentioning names or product type or even state, there was a client that was rubbing his nickels and.
Sure, yeah,
and was wanted to take the pictures or just pulling from the appraisal and. That's a tough deal because I review. I get on the ATG audit techniques, got an IRS at least quarterly, bare minimum biannually, but I'm on the quarterly looking at it. Now that they timestamp, and when I first started in 06, there was no timestamps. During the recession in 08, they started timestamp in your revisions or whatever.
It's actually helpful, yeah.
Yeah, it is, because it gives you a street.
Yeah.
They needed you back in 06.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no timestamps on anything. It was weird. That's changed. But yeah, I mean, and it's wonderful. It's very powerful. It's in any kind of real estate that's in a for-profit entity, not to be confused for not-for-profit. Credit unions And medical insurance providers, their buildings, believe it or not for profit.
Yeah.
Their buildings are held in a for-profit status. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No, I didn't.
But
that makes sense so they can take advantage.
Of that. I did a big campus when I was at CBRE. The office broker was a fraternal buddy of the CEO of a very big medical insurance provider, and it was quite an project. It was 75-80 million, but it was very intricate in the cost.
Imagine,
And so I was happy to do that. We did a section 170 EPAC study, which we can maybe talk about later. Energy efficiency study as well. But I don't want to get in the way of your questions there. So
No, definitely.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. Definitely. So, how would you say, like, do people use, this concept, people who are maybe more well-versed with just the ideas of cost segregation, do you see that influencing how people renovate or, adapt to reuse of things? Like, do you see that change people's behavior ahead of time before they even have the cost segregation done? Meaning, you've got some clients who they own the building, now they're doing this because they've owned it for a while. And there's other people who are like, because I know this, I'm going to do things differently.
Well, lighting can be, if there's more specialty lighting, that's going to be personal property in nature. I do a ton of auto dealerships as well.
Okay.
And the skins
Got
on the outside, you always see, regardless of brand, Honda, Audi, Porsche, whoever, Chevrolet. Notice how they're always changing the look of their dealerships. Well, that's driven by the manufacturer, and they're beholden by the bylaws as the franchisee or as the owner.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those happen just recently, actually.
Yeah, and so they qualify, another acronym, QIP, Qualified Improvement, which is and that's back when President Trump's his first term, but that's automatically 15-year. But yeah, you do see some more accents in different components. If the architect, and some architects are familiar with cost seg too.
Okay.
But really what I found is there's, of course, that the standards of energy efficiency have gotten so much higher. And of course, it didn't always pencil out 12, 14 years ago. But then, and of course, during this, the boom that we had, a lot of tenants were requiring it, whether it be Facebook, Google, because they can afford the dollar per square foot on that.
Well, man, one of the things that we're looking at here in Oregon that they're wanting to implement, we'll see how far this gets, is that they want to mandate that landlords provide cooling in their properties, which, if you're building new, okay, that's going to cause rents to be higher, which is part of the affordability problems. That's kind of an interesting take. But this would also apply to existing buildings. And some buildings are not designed for this, but this might be something like, if somebody had to go install a bunch of like PTACs or heat pumps, could they use cost seg for those types of improvements?
It's a good question. So, I just did finish one up. Actually, I finished two up. Same owner, different tax entities, same property manager, same broker. They had to, they want to get rid of the tenants they had or have, and they want to attract the ones they've got and retain the ones they have. So major HVAC, and even though they had existing, it was a big number to get it done. And so we'll do the cost seg study on the property. They're going to find out the value, whether they can find the study or not. They can take right off the old one, right? This is back in the old TPR, Tangible Property Regulation days, back in 13, 14. But you get to write off the remaining capitalization of that old HVAC. Okay. But far as buildings that don't have any existing HVAC at all, or any kind of air of any kind, that it would still be considered Section Code 1250 real.
Okay. For
the exception of server rooms and self-storage at room temperature, because it's specific to business activity.
Okay.
But you can still squeeze. We call it squeezing. You can still squeeze the building though and do a cost seg study, and that may very well pay for the HVAC.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
It's another way to look at it. That goes for rooftops and membranes as well, roofs. Repair versus replacement. If you can write off the remaining capitalization of a roof when you put on the new roof. So
cool. So, we've talked a lot about kind of the general overview of what cost segregation is and some of the benefits of that. Obviously, there's always two sides to every coin. There can sometimes be, drawbacks or pitfalls. Is there anything that comes to mind that, because investors like simple things, right? They like predictable things. Are there things that you would advise people, that they should be doing to prevent potential headaches where, you show up, you're working with a client, you're like, man, if you had done this, then this would have been a lot easier? Or like, what are some kind of challenges and things that come up in the...
Well, it's interesting you say, you ask that. So they say don't shoot the messenger, I guess that's what they say.
They do say that.
They do say that.
The messenger still seems to get shot regularly, unfortunately.
I'm trying to remember that old Elton John album, Don't Shoot Me on the Piano Player, or something like that, 73, 74. 72. What happens is, and I try to do it as quietly as I can, just to let them know going forward, you see some pretty good sized numbers depending on the size or the scope of the product, the real estate, the building. But, the sizable numbers are always going to be HVAC and roof. When I say always, almost always, 99% of the time. And sometimes it's not just 06, 08 or 2017 or 20. It's on a closed, this goes back to TPR, Tension Power Regulation. It was like last year and it's already been filed, the return.
Oh, yeah.
And so, the IRS allows you per the final Tension Power Regulations in an open tax year that has not yet been filed. You can write off the remaining capitalization of that roof or HVAC system and get it off the books. Let's say it's only been that it was bought 3 years ago and it's been on the books for 3 years. Well, 36/39ths of whatever value that we're going to place out as a result of the high quality cost seg study, you get to expense that and take it, this hit it right down there, and that's an expense. And then of course, go ahead and capitalize the new HVAC at 39 year. So that's citing is another one that can be a big number at sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so, that's a great tool. I got it.
So when you get a cost segregation study and you've kind of broken these things out into the different components, 5, 15 years, stuff like that, do people ever, just for strategic reasons, say, well, I'll utilize these 5-year items because that's going to serve us well based on our projected, income, but these 15-year ones are probably going to hold off on because we're doing these, like, are you able to do that, kind of like pick and choose from the list how you might want to apply something to a return, or is that more of a CPA question?
Well, it could be a Jonathan question, but it's going to be a enrolled agent CPA or a tax professional activity.
Got it.
So what I'm finding is, and we just had a presentation, Oregon CCIM chapter, Jonathan McGuire at Aldrich, CPAs.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's also a fellow sponsor. And he talks about some of these real estate professionals that are starting to do Section 179 to expense it, right?
Yeah.
Well, the 100% bonus, it's a moot point, especially if it's 20 years or less. But, we'll do a high quality cost segregation study with wonderful backup detail. And then it's only going to be our business on what they do with it. Now, if it's a look back study, the IRS calls them look backs. I call them catch up studies, 1 year or more. We'll calculate the 481A adjustment and then do the 8-pager, the change of accounting method 3115, draft that up, and then draft it all up, and then make sure our calculations are correct. And then they just fill in the LLC, and we answer all the yes and no questions for them and stuff.
Got it.
But the bottom line is that, I got a lot of clients, truck stops and C-stores and gas stations. They get special treatment. Provide one of the bright line tests, the IRS is 51% or more of petroleum activities. Well, it's all 5 and 15 year. And I tend to have two buckets of clients, one a little bit more than the other. I said, well, if it's all 5 and 15 year, I guess we don't need you, right? It's all, if it's 100% bonus year, it's expensive on that acquisition.
Yeah.
Or if it's a 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 year, and for some reason they stuck it in 39, which is a gross misclassification, by the way, especially with that type of, but I'm finding a lot of my clients, East Indian and Egyptian clients that have a lot of these type of product types, they come back to me because they want to pick and choose, which is their election, not mine. So that goes back to the.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
and if it's a new acquisition, or it could be even new construction, they want to see that beautiful breakout detail. Of course, in the summary, they'll get it too, but they may just take the bonus on the 15-year to protect themselves in case they get offered a big price,
Sure.
so they can minimize recapture or capital gains. It, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that
So
makes sense.
I always let them, back in early in my career, I would, being so service driven and such an advocate of the client, sometimes you get in the way of yourself if you do that to the extreme. And I did, by the way. But,
We all make mistakes. We all learn.
Well, it's interesting. If you try to keep the client happy,
Yeah.
but sometimes you're muddying the waters of the application of the study all by itself. But I have one client that says, well, you don't have to put that in there. I'm going to section 179 that. I own expensive. And then, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and it becomes a hot mess. How about if I just do my job, and then I'll present it to you, and then you do whatever you want with it, which will be always your business, your election. So I've gotten pretty good at that the last 10, 12 years, maybe even 15 of the 19 that I've been in it, that, they can always contact us on, how to apply it, but they get to pick and choose what they want. But a lot of my clients and the manufactured home communities, which is mostly 5 and 15, if not all,
Makes sense.
and the C-stores and gas stations and truck stops. Is there any others? RV parks they got a high reclassification percentages as well. But some still want it done because they may just, because 15 years is a good pop, especially if it's 100% bonus.
Yeah.
And they may just straight line the 5 years instead of taking it all on the first year.
Makes sense.
So I so once again, cost segregation study being used as an asset management tool, when to hold, when to fold, and to pick and choose. I hope I answered your question. I think.
Yeah, no, you definitely gave some clarity on that, and
Yeah.
just like how different users might utilize the report differently.
Yeah.
One of the things that obviously has become more and more like cost segregation, you said it's been around for a while in different forms. I think that, in the last 5 years, I've seen more people advertising this type of service, which is probably a lot to do with just, the activity and interest rates and all this kind of stuff happening. But, like anything, whether it's an attorney, a CPA, not all people are created equal. And sometimes I wonder, from an outside standpoint, because this is not an area of expertise I have, is, are people out there practicing or saying they're cost segregation experts, but they're not? And, because you got to be able to stand up to an audit potentially, right? So have you seen that? Have you seen people, holding themselves out in regard to being experts when they're not, or is that not something that really happens in
Well, I
that field?
appreciate it. Pretty much since I started in '06, I've seen there's a lot of people working out of their kitchens, and it's not about selling. It's not even about being right. It's being correct and being diligent on what the expectations are of the IRS, and of course, even the tax professional as well. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people claim that they're experts. I won't mention any names of my competitors. That'd be a cardinal sin.
Sure.
But, or maybe not. But they're, they'll talk about something else. We know what they do. They perform cost segregation studies. They're trying to drum up business, and I'm not a cost seg engineer. I do what I do best, which is pretty much all the front end work, but I am also involved in continual discovery for, with the client long after engagement. But, I remember a CPA telling me, he says, Jonathan, this is a long time ago, one of my first CCM presentations back in 2010. He says, whether we like consultants like you or not, we're down on what we don't know, we're up on what we do know. And so what I always say, let the bread man bake bread. So Jonathan, go bake bread. And he was the other panelist. And then we had the CCIM past president that was the moderator, but he's correct on that. And so I've gotten really intimately aware of how it works behind the curtain,
Yeah.
and the application of it all. And then of course I've had a real big, nice dose. I've worked with some companies didn't, beginning of my career, they didn't offer the level of detail that we have today. And so, yes, you see a lot of that. And I kind of have an aha moment about 2 weeks before I lost my mother in 2000. I got my first large portfolio. So I was I was back in May of 2008. And I was grateful that she got to witness that. She thought, well, maybe my son's actually going to make a living at this. Because, it was 06, 07. I mean, I gave up a lucrative wholesale lending background. I was doing okay.
Yeah.
Of course, that's a whole nother different podcast on what was going on back then. And
sure,
where what was going on.
Wild,
that might be 2 podcasts, actually. But, I'm grateful for where I am today. And I never say or mean anything more than what I really am and what I know. And I learned, I've relearned that at times, but I've always known that. But yeah, you're seeing a lot of, it's all about just getting, see if they can get some bites. And
maybe
overpromising and selling more than illustrating. And then they try to switch gears with a double clutch transmission and go into illustration, but they're still selling. And then sometimes they're getting the narrative. It's just not correct in what they're stating. So I do see that.
Something that could be easily challenged.
Easily challenged, yeah. And, it's the industry, it's a complete for a lot of the obvious and not so obvious reasons. It's really changed. I mean, when I started in 06, the level of detail was a lot different than the level of detail today that's required by the IRS. I mean, it's changed. It's a complete different product, if you will.
Yeah. Great. Well, no, this is great conversation, fascinating stuff.
It's a reunion.
It is a reunion. Yeah. Jonathan, and so one of the things that I want to talk about, obviously it's new news, but it's the big, beautiful bill that just rolled out in July here. Maybe you could just tell me what's in there that you're excited about. Maybe it's new stuff, maybe it's stuff that they're keeping, but, for people who are listening, what came out of that bill that you're really focused on?
Well, it'd be specifically just one thing, and I'll stay in my lane and on fixed assets only.
Sure.
And we'll get into R&D and some other, services. But the truth of the matter, it's the bonus depreciation, stupid.
Yeah.
That's what it is, really.
And that was at risk of expiring or sunsetting or something like that.
180, 60, 40, 20. And I still can't find the discovery, but of why they picked after 19th or 18th of January. Mm-hmm. Why it had to be one of those days? Why couldn't they just make it the first,
That is odd.
I think it's 19th. After on 19th of January, on any acquisitions, new construction, TIs, leasehold improvements, 100% bonus. It's permanent in nature. So it's huge.
That's huge, yeah.
And, it's the same man, the same president that brought 100% bonus depreciation on acquisition. Jonathan McGuire Aldridge, and I can say this, permission of disclosure, qualify and confirm it, but I'm confident he's correct. But that President Trump, he's the only president that's actually had 2 tax reform acts.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's a good point.
Because the last one we had was 86.
Yeah.
With Tip O'Neill and President Reagan. So it's very interesting. And so when I said stupid, by the way, I was, it's economy stupid, right? So
sure, yeah.
But everybody kind of thinks they understand about bonus depreciation, right?
Yeah.
Since 17 or 18. And it's interesting. And that now it's become a common word. And in some degrees, cost segregation. Cost seg has a little bit more in the last 7-8 years.
Yeah. And
so this juicing of the 100% bonus, juicing and squeezing the property, it's going to be a shot in the arm for the industry. I noticed this recently when President Trump signed it on 4th of July. I mean, eventually I'm pretty certain I was going to close the deal originate, but
you never know.
They signed right away. I mean, once that was a done deal.
Yeah.
So it's helpful to my book of business, but it's really about the client. I've stayed pretty busy when it was ratcheting down to 80, 60, 40. Certainly the 100% years, it was an interesting shot in the arm for many.
Yeah. So does the 100% just mean like it doesn't ratchet down anymore? Is it just going to be?
That's correct. Yeah, it's 100%.
Wow.
And I'm going to look in the code again when they say permanent or somebody else, some authority, tax authority says it's permanent. I found here in the United States of America, nothing's really permanent, for certainty. Sure. But I think it's until 2029, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. But the bottom line is it's 100% bonus, and it's not ratcheting down. I try to be mindful and selfless for the client. I don't recommend a cost segregation study if somebody's going to sell the property next year for the obvious reasons. On the old 1031 rule days, you could squeeze the relinquish as well as the replacement property because it was your deferring gain, not only all gains, but also recapture or deferring 1245. Well, that changed when President Trump was trying to negotiate and save 1031 and his advisors, as that, 1245 is still recognized now in 1031 purchases.
Okay.
Once again, that's another conversation, another time, but,
sure.
100% bonus is great if you can use it.
Yeah, you've got to have some taxable income to make that worthwhile. So
that's the biggest takeaway on the big beautiful bill for the most part. Everything else, there's some special applications on manufacturing. I still got to dive into that, but the 100% bonus still apply. That's probably the most important thing on fixed assets is TIs, leasehold improvements, new construction and acquisition. Anything on or after 19th of January 2025 is now scheduled and confirmed in law 100% bonus, which is huge.
2025 or 2026?
2025.
Okay, so it's retroactive.
Yeah, retroactive. That's correct. 2025.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Yeah. And once again, if anybody's going to do it, it's the man that's in the Oval Office. I mean, it's, to make bonus depreciation, that its original intention was to create jobs on TIs, leasehold improvements, new construction when President Bush
certain trades and
build things, and it's interesting how that got passed on that. So
it also probably catalyzes like energy efficiency, right? Because if maybe you can invest in a system with TIs, you can justify it or at least fund it easier if you've got the opportunity to depreciate that out sooner.
Absolutely. Well, you see it in different parts of the country, not so much. You see more of it in the Pacific Northwest, see it in Portland, but solar panels are a big thing in California. And of course, they're section code 1245. They're personal, 5-year, all day long.
So it's interesting they're personal because they're attached, right? Because like fixtures typically are attached to something.
Well, they're fixated up, but you can still take them off.
Oh,
So they're considered 5-year. But yeah, there's, we won't get into the so-called Inflation Reduction Act of the previous administration in Congress, but, they're just...
The irony of the title is...
The irony of the title will stay with me the remainder of my adult life, yeah. But he juiced up some, the Section 170D, which is an energy study. That's up to $5, over $5 a square foot from the old $260, $280, $3 a square foot. And that's a different, I've also got a partner, a company that performs those studies, partnered with. But that's another way to also get some deductions, but it doesn't have the same yield.
I mean, is there anything in the bill that you've seen that you think investors maybe have overlooked or things that they should be like planning to take advantage of? Obviously, this maybe changes some of their improvement timelines, things like that. But is there anything that you spotted so far? Again, I know this is a very new piece of legislation.
I appreciate the question. When it comes to fixed assets and real estate, the short answer is no. It's really just the bonus and know that that's back. It's a reunion of the drunk sailor times of depreciation, 18, 19, and 20.
Yeah.
And it's very powerful, and whatever you don't use, you don't lose, you carry forward. I would like to talk if we have. I don't know if we have time or not.
Sure. Yeah.
But, the cost seg study I mentioned earlier in the podcast can use as an asset management tool.
Yeah.
And everybody I know wants the losses. They want the tax dollars. They want the tax savings. I respect that and honor that. Yeah. But it's, once the client gets familiar with the studies and they come back for more, or they work intimately with a cost seg provider, and provided it's a high quality cost seg provider. And when they work with the property manager, if they happen to be the project managers for these improvements, and I'm more 99% of the time it seems like they are, you can get you retire some of these assets off the books. I mean, still, I think I mentioned in the podcast before with you and your partner, but we have tens of hundreds of thousands of millions, billions of double assets on the books.
So what do you mean by that?
We have two roofs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We got an acquired property. Let's say it's a $10 million office building, and it requires it's in really bad, they bought it 5 years ago, and it needs a roof, and it needs a full replacement, full on, and we'll just use rough numbers, but it's $1 million for the roof.
Sure.
The remaining capitalization of that roof, 5 from 39 is 34, 39 is, we can get that off the books, and that can turn into significant tax dollars. There's no reason to keep it on the books.
Yeah.
We just tore it off. And so you're seeing that with small, medium, and large cap companies, privately and publicly held, that they got double assets all over the place. And they're still,
got it.
If they haven't had even if they've had a cost seg study, there's still double assets on the book. It's amazing to me. A lot of my tax professional friends, because it was heady times, as David Giffen would say, heady times. But during the temporary tangible property regulations that started, I believe, in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, and then they finally became final end of 13 for January 1st, 2014. Well, I tell you, 13 and 14, it was Hotel California, man. I mean, we were all working to help out the tax professionals get these assets retired.
Yeah.
Boy, they made that a distant memory by 16, 17. It's amazing how many people don't think about that, whether it's the owners or the tax professionals, because they got other things going on.
Sure. It's
a distant memory. So I'm kind of bringing that back as a friendly reminder per the final TPRs, tangible property regulations, in an open tax year. It's not a closed one. So in other words, if you're, let's say it's February, March of 25, even though right now it's in September, and you made some improvements in 24, and they're significant to that subject property, I'll quietly suggest to the client that they extend. I want to take a look at those improvements.
Yeah.
As well as the acquisition basis too, of course, whenever they bought it.
Sure.
Let me see if we can retire some of those, because I don't want you to file yet, because once I file, then I'm not allowed to take the dispositions.
Yeah.
The acronyms on that, Nicholas, are PADs and FADs, partial asset dispositions, and final and full asset dispositions.
Okay.
And so, I'm one of those guys, that wants to turn over every stone. It doesn't have to be low-hanging fruit every time.
Sure, yeah.
You got two breadcrumbers.
You're thorough. That's good, though.
You got two breadcrumbers on the dining room table, Nicholas. You got one for the cookie crumbs and one for the breadcrumbs, right?
Yeah.
You get a nice baguette, a nice cookie when you get done with it, right?
Yeah. I like that. Well, I guess, for people who are eager to take advantage of these opportunities that we're kind of talking about, what's kind of an immediate step that they can take and prepare themselves for before they reach out to someone like you? Well,
if it's properties that are, everybody meaning almost everybody, they always like to reach out to a cost seg provider when it's new acquisition or new construction. And they oftentimes forget about the look-back studies. The IRS calls them look-backs. I call them catch-up.
Yeah.
So I'll look at their new acquisitions, but, and I'd be happy to, sometimes I'll offer sign an NDA or see it. But I really would like to holistically, because it's no obligation, no cost to them.
Yeah.
I'd like to look at your whole portfolio. That's at least the properties you plan on holding. I'll do the hard work too. I want to earn your business. But let me take a look at properties that have been in service for a year or more. In that case, to answer your question,
yeah,
it'd be a 2024 if they're on extension. If they've already filed on 24 for 24, it'd be the 2023 federal tax depreciation schedule.
Yeah.
And a physical address. That's all I need. And I'll take a look up in the clouds, provided I have a correct physical address. And then with that federal tax depreciation schedule. And then I'll take a look at it and I'll submit what I recommend to the engineers. And we'll bring something back in the EOB proposal. That includes 1 year or more in new construction because it is going to make it on that schedule, that federal tax depreciation schedule. If it's a new construction, or I'd like to see the hard and soft costs if they have it handy. Yeah. Some of the more formal, schedule values is another term. And then get real formal or a little more formal GL 702, 703, the AIA document. That's also considered a schedule of values. But whatever they had in hard and soft costs, that's something I want to talk about. Often that my clients forget to give me. Soft costs have the same value as hard costs. And why is that? Because soft costs are going to mirror the reclass percentages of the hard costs. So if you've got a $10 million building in construction, we'll say mixed-use multifamily, and we know with the way things are with us, particularly on the West Coast, we know we're probably going to have $1 million worth of soft costs. And,
definitely.
And then, of course, architectural drawings, that's probably another 50 grand, 75 grand. It goes on and on and on, right? Yeah. Well, they have the same value as the hard costs, so they have equal importance. And so I always want to make sure that I get the hard and soft costs, so that in a spreadsheet. If it's an acquisition, love to see a closing statement. One of the things my competitors oftentimes don't ask, and I always do, I'd always want to separate, be diligent. But, is it a straight purchase or a 1031? Oh, yeah. Because that makes a hell of a difference. It really does. Okay. I mean, you can't double dip on the deferred gain, right? Sure, yeah. And, I mean, I've had a few people ask me that they can. That's a good point. No, that's a really good point. Yeah, you really got to know that there's a former company I was with, and they've been merged with somebody else. What was he? The director of tax. I learned a lot from that man. And he calls it the net excess depreciable basis minus land. So, whatever that basis is after you calculate the deferred gain, that number we're going to strike from, we'd like to have that. On a 1030 or a straight purchase, we'd still like to look at the final closing statement, and we could do an estimate, a split, whether it's 80-20 split or whatever, but that's really about it. That I'd like to see a final closing statement because then I can ask less questions. Sure. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, that's always helpful. Great. Now, this has been an excellent conversation. One of the other questions I have has to do with, using cost segregation in estate planning. Is there ways to kind of, utilize this to benefit in that, or there's not really a vehicle for that? Well, it's interesting that portfolio I picked up before I lost my mother in 2008. I learned from that experience. Without mentioning names, it was a 10 property portfolio, 9 were self-storage, and then 1 was in Grant, assisted living facility. Okay. I created over $10 million of depreciation expense. I put 3.1 or 3.2, I can't remember, of tax dollars in his pockets. And unfortunately, the client passed away 3 years later. Yeah. What I learned about that, and again, always being diligent and discovery, you will learn things as the years go by and the days and months go by. What happened is on estate, to answer your question, Nicholas, estate planning, you got a step-up basis. So a lot of my patriarchs and matriarchs that I work with, families, closely held families, they don't care what their basis is when they pass away. Yeah. And they shouldn't. Yeah. And so, you hear the old term from IRA Advantage, David Moore and Lake Oswego, and he says swap until you drop, and well, you actually swap until you drop, but you cost second until you drop too. Yeah. Because you don't really care about the basis. You're going to have capital gains one way or another anyway. Sure. And so what's kind of neat about that is, and it's called the Section 754 adjustment, and I've seen 742 on schedules, but whoever the heir apparents are, they get a step-up basis. Remember, in the last set of 4 years, they were trying to take away that. They're trying to take that away. So the short answer is, from a financial planning or advisor, they're tax professional, they really should be cost segging everything, and then find a cost seg provider that if there's minimal benefit to still perform in the high quality studies, and then obviously we'll get work when there's a basis to work with, because it's important to get it. Because I don't know if I wrote a paper on that or not, but I always talk about there's no recapture when one passes away.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just a step up basis.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat that way. So that's one way from an estate planning standpoint, is that, whoever is currently in control of the real estate before there's any gifting going on.
Yeah.
Or before anybody passes away, go ahead and squeeze your portfolio.
Yeah. Cool. Well, no, that definitely answers the question, and good perspective on the long-term planning here. So we're going to kind of wrap up by pivoting a little bit and asking a few questions about Jonathan, just so the audience can get to know you a little bit more. We always like asking 3 questions kind of at the end of the podcast. And these are off the cuff, so no one's going to hold you to the answers. What is your favorite go-to comfort food? Like if you had to pick one, you've got something that you just absolutely love.
Wow. I love grilling. And I really like a good porterhouse.
Nice.
Or I like a good ribeye.
Yeah.
Bone-in or otherwise.
Sure.
I just picked up some American Wagyu, Snake River Farms, New York's.
Nice.
And then I picked up some of their prime too, and I tried that. I just love a good steak. I tell you. I mean, I really do.
It's nothing like it. Yeah.
There's nothing like it, man. Charred, medium rare.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. Love it. And then also just kind of, thinking about, over the last 5 years, mainly looking back over COVID and so forth, how do you think that whole experience has maybe changed you? Like, have you noticed any differences in your perspectives and how you live your life, or just how did that whole event change things?
Wow, that's a separate podcast.
That definitely could be.
You're always good about this. You and Matt both did it last time we did this, 7, 8, 9 years ago, whatever it was. It's once again, it's a damn good question. You always do this at the end of the podcast. I'll tell you what it is. And I'm doing a fast, soft rewind right now.
Sure.
But for me, what happened, during the pandemic, the COVID, was there was changes in the company I was with, and yet there was relationships that were already established and fostered.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't the easiest guy to be around back in May of 20, if I remember correctly. But, I always, and it is what it is, right? No matter how much of a producer you are and how much swag you have and how hard you've worked, things change.
Yeah.
Especially in the big aircraft carrier companies, right?
Oh, gosh.
And for sure.
Yeah.
And so what happened is that, they talk about, you just always make sure you have good bounce. Mm-hmm. And then I went on to another firm and I did really well for him. And then when I look at now, I was made principal with Kevel Kevel, which I'm very grateful for. But that never would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
That never, ever, ever, ever would have happened if I wasn't on that previous aircraft carrier.
Sure.
Yeah. And so what do I mean by all that? Just because things are the way they are, they don't always have to stay the same. And just never lose sight of who you've been as a professional, as a friend, because you never know if it'll ever pay dividends. And likelihood it will.
Yeah.
So I hope I've answered your question on that.
These are your answers. There's no wrong answer.
They're always good questions.
Yeah.
You can count on that.
Definitely. And then, the other question I have is, and some people don't like this term, I use the term bucket list because it doesn't bother me, but some people don't like the illusion of it. But is there anything that you have on your, bucket list or to-do list that you're, really wanting to, accomplish over the next 5 years, 10 years? Maybe it's traveling somewhere, maybe it's, learning a new hobby. Is there something that you've got that you're excited about, you're looking forward to checking off?
Well, it's appreciate that. Yes, I got married back in 21, my lovely wife, Shannon, and I made a promise to her that she wouldn't go anywhere in the world for 3 weeks plus, whenever she get the time off, and I'd take her wherever she wants to go. And And I've worked so much over the years, even as a younger man. And I mean, I've smelled the roses, but I really never done really international travel. Yeah. And that's changing in the last few years. But it'd be nice, I'd like to just cover that if I could.
Sure,
Cover Spain all the way to Turkey or Greece.
That'd be awesome.
Just kind of cover that coast. You're going to see so many similarities and yet differences. Mm-hmm. And I would love to cover that. I'm going back to Italy to an Italian friend of mine where he grew up in Lacomino in Ischia, right outside of Napoli. And we know each other for 45 years, man.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's that's great.
I opened 4 of his stores, houses, back when I was in the hospitality industry. And
yeah, cool.
Shannon, my wife, was really taken back last year when we visited him. She saw a complete different person.
It's like a different version.
And she was quite taken back, and she's looking forward to it. But travel is definitely, because I'll just take the laptop, put it around my neck, and continue to work.
Yeah,
but I definitely want to continue to travel more for sure.
That's awesome. I discovered this. I didn't discover it. Someone told me about this last year. There's an app out there that's on your phone, and you can try it out for free for a couple trips. And then I think it's pretty inexpensive to just have, but it's called Time Shifter. And Time Shifter is a app that basically helps reduce substantially jet lag. And so you basically put in your flight information, and it pulls that and then tells you days in advance, okay, this is when you want to wake up, this is when you want to go to bed, this is when you should have coffee. It augments your routine leading up to your travel, and then through your travel, and then when you land, there's a couple things, but it basically is designed to slowly adjust that internal clock. And I tried it when I went to Asia last year, and I was like, holy smokes. It definitely, it's not like a complete get out of jail free card, but it made a noticeable difference.
Time Shifter, I'll have to look that up, Nicholas.
Yeah, so
that's really something.
So on your trip to Italy,
my wife, she'll be climbing in there quick enough on the App Store on that one.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and I've told a bunch of people about it, and I'm like, wow, this actually legitimately works. So
and you really get to know your partner too when you travel too.
Oh. 100%.
I'm very clear that's a separate podcast.
That definitely could be. I went to Spain and Portugal with Julie when we were still pretty new in our relationship, and we had a wonderful time. But it definitely, there are some times where the waters were tested because you've got some jet lag, you're in a place you don't know.
Sure.
This person, and so it ended up working out, and we've done more traveling, and we're gonna.
I always enjoy seeing you guys' pictures, and you guys are a cute couple and very amicable, and it's just great for me to see. I love it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I want everybody to be happy, man. Life is way too short.
Speeds by.
I've learned that. I want to thank you for the invite. It seems like yesterday, but it's at least 7 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. I know. It
seems, I don't know what year it was. And I tried to find it up. I couldn't pull it up.
Yeah, we'll have to look at the original episode when we were doing the other podcast. But a lot of time has passed. But I'm really grateful that you reached out and let me know you're going to be in town.
If you ever get up north, we'll suck down some oysters or something.
That sounds great.
I'm down here a lot in Oregon. I love Oregon CCIM.
Yeah.
I've been coming down here since 2009, but I do quite a few properties down here. But I'm all over the country. I got engineers scattered all over the country. But, there's something especially unique about the Oregon CCM chapter. I have my backyard, Washington CCM chapter, which is in Bellevue. But I just love seeing all the brokers in Eugene and Portland, and
some good people.
One thing they never lose sight of, because not everybody needs to like or love or respect each other, but they know that they never lose. I know that sounds oversimplified, but it's amazing how many people forget. Nothing happens unless you have a buyer and a seller.
Very true. Very true.
But in certain circles in life and real estate trade organizations, they lose sight of that.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So.
No, that's a good observation. Well, Jonathan, it's been a pleasure as always. Thanks for being here. And
it's good seeing you.
Last thing is what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to hire you? Because obviously you cover the whole country, your shop does, and so is it by email, by phone, website? We'll put some stuff in the show notes as well. But if there's anything you want to share now,
my phone number, direct mobile number is area code 206-399-7769, and the email address is a lot simpler than the last couple three brands. It's just Jonathan@Kevel.com. And it's just Jonathan, Jon as in Nancy, ATAN, JONATHAN @Kevel, K as in Kellogg, E as in Eduardo, Kevel, V as in Victor, IL.
Perfect. Great.
And then Kevel.com. If you go in there on Kevel.com, there's a press release a couple years ago, last May, that I finally made it public. That I was, but I'm just grateful to be there. I mean, it's wonderful to have a front of the house and a back of the house that really works together.
It's awesome. Great. Well, thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Perfect.
It's my privilege. Recapture when one passes away.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just a step up basis.
Yeah.
So it's kind of neat that way. So that's one way from an estate planning standpoint, is that, whoever is currently in control of the real estate before there's any gifting going on.
Yeah.
Or before anybody passes away, go ahead and squeeze your portfolio.
Yeah. Cool. Well, no, that definitely answers the question, and good perspective on the long-term planning here. So we're going to kind of wrap up by pivoting a little bit and asking a few questions about Jonathan, just so the audience can get to know you a little bit more. We always like asking 3 questions kind of at the end of the podcast. And these are off the cuff, so no one's going to hold you to the answers. What is your favorite go-to comfort food? Like if you had to pick one, you've got something that you just absolutely love.
Wow. I love grilling. And I really like a good porterhouse.
Nice.
Or I like a good ribeye.
Yeah.
Bone-in or otherwise.
Sure.
I just picked up some American Wagyu, Snake River Farms, New York's.
Nice.
And then I picked up some of their prime too, and I tried that. I just love a good steak. I tell you. I mean, I really do.
There's nothing like it. Yeah.
There's nothing like it, man. Charred, medium rare.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. Love it. And then also just kind of, thinking about, over the last 5 years, mainly looking back over COVID and so forth, how do you think that whole experience has maybe changed you? Like, have you noticed any differences in your perspectives and how you live your life, or just how did that whole event change things?
Wow, that's a separate podcast.
That definitely could be.
You're always good about this. You and Matt both did it last time we did this, 7, 8, 9 years ago, whatever it was. It's once again, it's a damn good question. You always do this at the end of the podcast. I tell you what it is. And I'm doing a fast, soft rewind right now.
Sure.
But for me, what happened, during the pandemic, the COVID, was there was changes in the company I was with, and yet there was relationships that were already established and fostered.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't the easiest guy to be around back in May of 20, if I remember correctly. But, I always, and it is what it is, right? No matter how much of a producer you are and how much swag you have and how hard you've worked, things change.
Yeah.
Especially in the big aircraft carrier companies, right?
Oh, gosh.
And for sure.
Yeah.
And so what happened is that, they talk about, you just always make sure you have good bounce. Mm-hmm. And then I went on to another firm and did really well for him. And then when I look at now, I was made principal with Kevel Kevel, which I'm very grateful for. But that never would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
That never, ever, ever, ever would have happened if I wasn't on the previous aircraft carrier.
Sure.
Yeah. And so what do I mean by all that? Just because things are the way they are, they don't always have to stay the same. And just never lose sight of who you've been as a professional, as a friend, because you never know if it'll ever pay dividends. And likelihood it will.
Yeah.
So I hope I've answered your question on that.
No, these are your answers.
Yeah,
There's no wrong answer.
They're always good questions.
Yeah,
you can count on that.
Definitely. And then, the other question I have is, and some people don't like this term, I use the term bucket list because it doesn't bother me, but some people don't like the illusion of it. But is there anything that you have on your, bucket list or to-do list that you're, really wanting to, accomplish over the next 5 years, 10 years? Maybe it's traveling somewhere. Maybe it's, learning a new hobby. Is there something that you've got that you're excited about, you're looking forward to checking off?
Well, it's appreciate that. Yes, I got married back in 21, my lovely wife, Shannon, and I made a promise to her that she wouldn't go anywhere in the world for 3 weeks plus, whenever she get the time off, and I'd take her wherever she wants to go. And I've worked so much over the years, even as a younger man. And I've smelt the roses, but I really never done really international travel. Yeah. And that's changing in the last few years. But it'd be nice, I'd like to just cover that if I could.
Sure,
Cover Spain all the way to Turkey or Greece.
That'd be awesome.
Just kind of cover that coast. You're going to see so many similarities and yet differences. Mm-hmm. And I would love to cover that. I'm going back to Italy to an Italian friend of mine where he grew up in Lacomino in Ischia, right outside of Napoli. And we know each other for 45 years, man.
Wow. Wow. That's that's great.
I opened 4 of his stores, houses, back when I was in the hospitality industry. And
yeah, cool.
Shannon, my wife, was really taken back last year when we visited him. She saw a complete different person.
It's like a different version.
And she was quite taken back, and she's looking forward to it. But travel is definitely, because I'll just take the laptop, put it around my neck, and continue to work. Yeah, but I definitely want to continue to travel more for sure.
That's awesome. I discovered this. I didn't discover it. Someone told me about this last year. There's an app out there that's on your phone, and you can try it out for free for a couple trips. Then I think it's pretty inexpensive to just have, but it's called Time Shifter. And Time Shifter is a app that basically helps reduce substantially jet lag. And so you basically put in your flight information, and it pulls that and then tells you days in advance, okay, this is when you want to wake up, this is when you want to go to bed, this is when you should have coffee. It augments your routine leading up to your travel, and then through your travel, and then when you land, there's a couple things, but it basically is designed to slowly adjust that internal clock. And I tried it when I went to Asia last year, and I was like, holy smokes. It definitely, it's not like a complete get out of jail free card, but it made a noticeable difference.
Time Shifter, I'll have to look that up, Nicholas.
Yeah, so
that's really something.
So on your trip to Italy,
my wife, she'll be climbing in there quick enough on the App Store on that one.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and I've told a bunch of people about it, and I'm like, wow, this actually legitimately works. So
and you really get to know your partner too when you travel too.
Oh. 100%.
I'm very clear that's a separate podcast.
That definitely could be. I went to Spain and Portugal with Julie when we were still pretty new in our relationship, and we had a wonderful time. But it definitely, there are some times where the waters were tested because you've got some jet lag, you're in a place you don't know, this person, and so it ended up working out, and we've done more traveling, and we're gonna
I always enjoy seeing you guys' pictures, and you guys are a cute couple and very amicable, and it's just great for me to see. I love it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I want everybody to be happy, man. Life is way too short.
Speeds by.
I've learned that. I want to thank you for the invite. It seems like yesterday, but it's at least 7 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. I know. It
seems, I don't know what year it was. And I tried to find it up. I couldn't pull it up.
Yeah, we'll have to look at the original episode when we were doing the other podcast. But a lot of time has passed. But I'm really grateful that you reached out and let me know you're going to be in town.
If you ever get up north, we'll suck down some oysters or something.
That sounds great.
I'm down here a lot in Oregon. I love Oregon CCIM.
Yeah.
I've been coming down here since '09, but I do quite a few properties down here. But I'm all over the country. You know, I got engineers scattered all over the country. But, you know, there's something especially unique about the Oregon CCM chapter. I mean, I have my backyard, Washington CCM chapter, which is in Bellevue. But I just love seeing all the brokers in Eugene and Portland. And
some good people.
One thing they never lose sight of, because not everybody needs to like or love or respect each other, but they know that they never lose. I know that sounds oversimplified, but it's amazing how many people forget. Nothing happens unless you have a buyer and a seller.
Very true. Very true.
But, you know, in certain circles in life and real estate trade organizations, they lose sight of that.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Well, Jonathan, it's been a pleasure as always. Thanks for being here. And
it's good seeing you.
Last thing is, you know, what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to hire you? Because obviously you cover the whole country, your shop does, and so you know, is it by email, by phone, website? We'll put some stuff in the show notes as well. But if there's anything you want to share now,
you know, my phone number, direct mobile number is area code 206-399-7769, and you know, the email address is a lot simpler than the last couple three brands. It's just Jonathan@Kevel.com. And it's just Jonathan, Jon as in Nancy, ATAN, JONATHAN at Kevel, K as in Kellogg, E as in Eduardo, Kevel, D as in Victor, IL.
Perfect. Great.
And then Kevel.com. You know, if you go in there on Kevel.com, there's a press release a couple years ago, last May, that I finally made it public. That I was, you know, but I'm just grateful to be there. I mean, it's wonderful to have a front end of the house and the back of the house that really works together.
It's awesome. Great. Well, thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Perfect.
It's my privilege.